This video contains mild spoilers for Naoki Urasawa's 3 manga, Monster, 20th Century Boys, and Pluto, so please continue with that in mind. I think, therefore I am. The first principle of René Descartes' philosophy is a mentality very commonly used to validate a person's humanity. But can something think and truly be human? And on the other hand, can something be human and lack any thought? Naoki Urasawa, a Japanese mangaka, brilliantly flips this definition on its head through his works Monster, 20th Century Boys, and Pluto. Each one of these 3 manga covers a different part of what makes us human, an individual's emotional understanding of those around them, their gullibility and desire to have something greater than themselves, and the genuinity present in emotions of hatred and love within inhuman entities, respectively. They all serve to challenge what it truly means to be a human by posing scenarios that seem so unrealistic yet so philosophically interesting. Monster is the first of Urasawa's manga that I want to look into. It reworks the meaning of humanity through the evident inhumanity of something very clearly human, as well as how common human emotions can lead to terrible inhumane things through its well-written and thought-provoking characters. The first of these characters is Johan. Put simply, he's a devil incarnate. Johan wants to see the world burn and doesn't have any real rhyme or reason as to why he commits atrocities other than his urge to do so. He can be considered the devil in both his ideologies and his methodology, because he not only lacks any empathy for those he kills or makes kill, but he also kills without leaving a trace of human presence. He is a killer that does not exist, a killer who defies all that is human through his actions and thoughts. Urasawa's creation of such a character is a modern jab at humanity itself. Would someone with such a mentality really be considered a human? Johan thinks, speaks, and acts. He is a human. Yet, despite being clearly human in both flesh and blood, his purpose for living is to bring the world to ruin. Johan, despite having the body of a human, is described as a monster that has 10 horns and 7 heads. Humans are egotistical species. Because of this, we often can't even accept our own shortcomings. Urasawa creates Inspector Lunge, a character that has nothing but confidence in his ability to solve crimes to embody the arrogance of humanity. His unrivaled confidence results in his refusal to believe that a human would ever be able to commit a murder, yet leave the scene completely devoid of any life or tampering. As the reader, we know Lunge is wrong in his deductions, but his train of thought is a common one that anyone, if not everyone, would have in such an unbelievable situation. Even as readers, we hold arrogance over Lunge because we know what he doesn't. Lunge and the reader aren't arrogant enough to lose their humanity, but it's a trait that can lead to inhumane thoughts and actions and has done so in Urasawa's other works. Other than Lunge, there exists Dr. Tenma, the main character, and Monster's embodiment of compassion, a trait that humanity prides itself in. Despite this, Naoki Urasawa looks at the ugly truths that lie within compassion. Animals are able to gauge the danger levels of a situation and make any necessary action to avoid such things, something that humans should also be able to do. But compassion clouds all judgment. Tenma had many opportunities to kill Johan, the man tantamount to the devil himself. Despite the world being ultimately saved by this action, he never pulls the trigger. 19 years of chasing after this monster and he can't do it because he sees humanity in this thing devoid of all empathy. Compassion really can be considered something good in most cases, but in the end it allowed for the deaths of so many people. Dr. Tenma's existence within Monster serves to further the idea that sometimes a person must admit that the death of one in favor of the lives of countless is a necessary evil. Dr. Tenma's character shows that a clearly human emotion can still be inhumane at times. Monster's characters all take on different aspects of human nature, and although they sometimes highlight good aspects, they tend to embody all that is wrong with it. Just because a human can think and feel, it doesn't mean they deserve the superiority they've entitled themselves to, and Urasawa utilizes Monster to highlight this idea. Monster depicted the story of someone who discarded their humanity to become the devil, and 20th Century Boys showcases a human who was so enveloped by ego that he transcended his very own humanity in favor of false godhood. Urasawa uses 20th Century Boys to illustrate 2 aspects of the psyche that contradict the divine right humans have bestowed upon themselves as the only real form of sentience. The 2 ideas being the codependency of a collective hive mind and the inhumanity of ego. The main antagonist friend represents how egotistical man can be when they're left to develop their minds, and the populace of 20th Century Boys serves to show just how mindless and ignorant a person can be. A hive mind can be simply defined as a collective group of people who share the same mentality. Rather than simply having similar opinions, they rely and build off of each other's shared thoughts and opinions to strengthen their own. They often band together and further bad habits and mentalities. The hive mind present in 20th Century Boys is the friendship party. The members are broken people. They're people who have been convinced by other friendship party members that they can rely on friend for sustenance. By the end of it all, these members lose all sense of free thought. Rather, they believe and do anything friend says because they've convinced themselves that doing so will bring about a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. This lack of free thought proves that just because something can think, it doesn't mean it will. A human isn't special for being able to think when their thought process can be so easily hijacked by something alluring. The friend that is worshipped by the collective population is but another example of the falsification that is humanity. Friend is but a man, yet he is revered as something much greater. He thought of himself as someone unique, as someone worthier than others. He built up his image and created what can only be seen as a cult. He staged events that resulted in the deaths of countless while playing the hero in every single one, solely to attain a dream as simplistic as becoming the world president. Of his many ploys, he resurrected himself from the dead, walked out of his casket, and took a bullet for the Pope. This single action cemented him as a being far holier than human in the eyes of the people. His mentality was that of a child. He could think and he could feel, but he held no remorse for human life. He only saw his childish ambitions, which set him as Urasawa's catalyst for an egotistically selfish character. Like Johann, Friend clearly exhibits human characteristics, but the overemphasis of certain traits makes him seem inhumane and unholy. He is human in theory, but far from it in mentality. Unlike Urasawa's other manga, Pluto is told from the perspective of a robot, something very clearly inhuman, yet it still manages to defy the very definition of the human psyche. Throughout the course of the story, the concept of AI evolving and developing emotions is nodded at and eventually brought to fruition. Robots developing feelings such as love, longing, and even pure hatred utterly defies the idea that humans are because they think, and even serves to put humanity under the limelight because of the measures they take to prevent such a development. Geicht, the main character of Pluto, was one of 6 super robots made with inconceivable AIs. He works as a police officer and goes back to his wife where they live a seemingly human life. During his work, he was made to investigate a mass murderer who kidnapped and killed robot children. By the end of this investigation, Geicht finds the killer and ends up going against all of his programming, killing the man out of hatred more human than the real thing. Because of this, he's subject to anti-robot hate crimes as well as tampering done to his memory solely because the world wasn't able to accept the fact that he developed something they thought to be exclusively human. Similarly to Geicht, even simpler AIs began to experience love, sadness, and hatred through traumatizing experiences. Of these robots, some were even able to use their complex systems to precisely identify and interpret micro-movements and brain waves to further understand the mental state of something. Their development throughout the story served to further question whether something needed to be human to be humane. Rather than creating a world where robots either only love and help or hate and destroy, Urasawa posed a realistic scenario where both cases of sentience exist. The personality of a robot develops through their interactions and environments similarly to humans, but unlike that of a human, a robot's memory is perfect. They can never forget something no matter how hard they try, and because of this, their emotions can never truly diminish, for they know exactly how they felt at any given moment. This means that their hatred can only grow, but so can their compassion. The robots and humans in Pluto are written to be the opposite of Johann. Johann was a human turned monster due to a lack of emotion regarding those around him. But Geicht, as well as many other characters in Pluto, began as emotionless machines meant for labor that eventually developed personalities of their own. Despite their lack of humanity, the machines began to think, and therefore they are, fully solidifying Urasawa's deconstruction of what it means to be human. In Pluto, the machines might have even been more human than their creators because of the strength of their emotions. These 3 manga all attempt to redefine the meaning of humanity by challenging our common perception of what it really means to be human. Each one boasts characters that portray the imperfections present within different aspects of humanity. They convey the idea that just because someone is made of flesh and blood doesn't mean they're truly human, and vice versa. This statement is terrifying because it invalidates what little value humans have over any other thing in existence. Naoki Urasawa wrote masterpieces. There are countless other manga that question the morality and value of humanity, but they all seem to pale in comparison because they look at things from the third-person perspective of right and wrong. On the other hand, Urasawa's manga don't necessarily have a villain. Rather, everyone is a victim. A form of storytelling that not only flawlessly illustrates the frailty of humanity, but also solidifies Naoki Urasawa as one of the greatest mangakas in history. Thank you for watching, and please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And if you're interested in more of my content, check out one of these two videos, they're my personal favorites. Again, thank you and have a great day.